We may not be able to get in on the hurling action like we're used to yet, but we can get in on some exclusive offers from Renault. To celebrate their third year as official car partner of the GAA, Renault is offering a range of special offers exclusive to all GAA club members. Check out renault.ie/GAA to find out more.
With Renault, official car partner of the GAA, taking the passion of a nation to a whole new gear.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Hello, everybody. You're very welcome along to the Irish Examiner Hurling Show in conjunction with Renault. Great to have Renault back, lads. Championships in the air. Mighty, and loads of offers there, so Google on there to Renault /GAA, so there's great stuff there. Lovely morning, lads, on the wild Atlantic Way over here on the west coast of Clare. Derek McGrath, a bit of a gloom in Waterford this morning, unlike the bright sunshine here in Clare.
Yeah, normally the sunny southeast here. Yeah, it's not so bad here this morning. Look, I think Liam Cahill hit it on the nail on the head. Just the flatness all around the performance. You know, fast, if you go rewind 2 weeks, we played brilliantly against Tip in the league. Real mood of optimism. But I think there's a realistic kind of, sense here today that, missing the players that were missing and just the flatness that can happen. I think we've all been there as managers where you think the prep has gone really well and the team just doesn't reflect the preparation. I think that's, that was evident yesterday. And, you'd have to kudos to Clare and Lohan for being as well prepared as they were as well.
Yeah, well said, Derek. Lads, none of the two of you gave Clare any chance last Monday week, along with Shane McGrath, I might add.
Yeah,
I'm laughing about it.
I'm guilty.
We did pick up Wexford to win, all right, Dalo.
Yeah, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it.
Myself and yourself did, Mac. TJ picked Antrim in that one.
I did.
I didn't want to mention that now, to be honest. But
there'll be lots of slagging later on about fantasy hurling and that, but let's get the games right first anyway as we go along.
I thought that Waterford's league, like Derek, I thought there was plenty of signs of optimism there. I know they were missing some players. I thought that they were I thought they were using plenty of players. I thought they had plenty of options. But I thought maybe yesterday during the commentary, and I thought last night, I don't think Lohan got enough credit for his tactical setup, the way he went about absolutely nailing Waterford's game plan, really. I thought he just didn't, I put it this, if it was Davy Fitz, the commentator would be raving about him. I thought that Lohan got it absolutely spot on. I think his management team, every matchup, I thought if there was maybe two players that kind of symbolised Lohan and Clare and championship yesterday, I thought it was two cornerbacks. Right from the word go, they were up for it. They were up their opponent's ass. Everything, they were sending out the signals. This is championship and we're ready for it. And you could clearly see yesterday they were ready.
Yeah, young Hayes is really developing into a gym. TJ, he nominated for an All-Star last year and probably struggled on Desi Hutchinson last year. 2-2 conceded. Now he finished the game very strongly but has carried on that form. And then for Paul Flanagan, that was turning back the clock for Paul.
Yeah.
He mightn't have got a chance if Aaron Fitzgerald was fit, but talk about seizing your chance when it came along. The same I thought with Paddy Fitzpatrick. Might be the most spectacular player. A fella in his 30s making his championship debut for Clare, but when 6 Mile Bridge play anybody in Clare, lads, that has a marquee forward, Paddy Fitz is put on them. Be there Conor McGrath, be there if they play us, it's a Bobby Duggan. If it's Clooney, it's Peter Duggan. Paddy's the man to pick up these guys. And I thought he fairly obliterated Jack Fagan yesterday from the play, and they were able to then take him off and bring David McInerney in, which is great.
And he's in his 30s, Anthony, is it?
He's in his 30s. I can't. Maybe you could go back to the 80s. A couple of lads. The break off of the Gerlochnan team, I kind of came in as a sub in 89, and there was a few lads getting debuts around then that I hadn't heard of hardly from maybe smaller clubs in the county, and they might have been pushing up around the 30, but certainly in later years I can't remember anyone coming into the Clare team that's over 30.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, that's an amazing thing to think that somebody that late in their career could come in and make their debut, Like that just proves that Brian Lohan is on the ball with the form and picking players that are in form, and that their age doesn't matter, because it's a big thing around selection committees. Oh, Jesus, he's mid-20s or he's late 20s. We couldn't consider him, like, which is rubbish. Like, if the fella's good enough, it doesn't matter what his age is. It's all about how good he is.
It was both, Mac. It was the tactical matchups, number one, with the game plan as well. Like the positioning of Conlon, like freeing up Conlon for the puck outs. I know Waterford did play into his hands by allowing all these things to happen, but the positioning of Colm Galvin in the middle of the field, and then to go with Tony Kelly forcing Callum Lyons' hand to play him up top with Shanahan. So he got all of those bang on. And you'd have to give him a huge amount of credit as to him and the management team. Like, I know they've had a sticky wicket there for maybe a year and a half now, Dalo, in Clare. But really, I thought last year in the first round against Limerick, tactically they were very good as well with the positioning of Tony Kelly. I thought this year as well, tactically, game plan wise, just caught Waterford off the hop, I think, early doors. They set the tone in the early quarter. And Waterford, I think their performance, as Derek said there, it was flat. It just kind of reminded me of a horse that was kind of struggling. The whip was out. Maybe they'll have to jump in one or two, and you knew your fate. But the positive for Waterford at the very end of it is they were staying on strong. And look, we can clearly see last night the last quarter was by far their best quarter. And you might say if the game went on another 5 or 10 minutes. But in end of the day, Clare the better team yesterday. Full value for their win. Great performance. And you'd nearly go as far as to say typical Lohan, wasn't it?
There was some element of Lohan in there, yeah, Keith's defiance. And look, I mean, defensively, like I've been saying this, lads, I've been saying this now for a while, that I'm gone a bit sick of defenders not defending. And I don't think their systems are being set up to tell them not to defend. I think there's so many backs taking liberties. They're going up the field and they're doing something positive, which is great. But their men are regularly picking off 4 and 5 points. And I can remember the couple of days that happened to me. I still have horrors about them. And I thought that was one of the things yesterday with Clare. Only conceded 21 points. That was a nice bit lower, save for the last 10 minutes. Never looked like conceding a goal. And fellas marked their men, and they got John Conlon into the pocket, and he was superb at reading it. Waterford, Derek, to be fair, did puck a lot of ball down on top of him. I suppose taking Calum Lyons back into full back took away an awful lot of what I've liked about Waterford so far this year and late last year. And I suppose that little bit of stuff I found a little bit... the flatness is very hard to understand. Do you know that? But we understand it as well because we've all been there. But those little tactical things, I found that I didn't expect Liam to be caught like that.
Yeah, look, I'd say, no different than we all alluded to last week. You have your plan A, B, and C, and I'd say plan A was Lyons was taking Kelly, and if Kelly was going to wing forward, the hope was, I suppose, to have Kelly at wing forward, I suppose, and then, like, I'd imagine plan B was Conor Gleeson, which you probably reverted to later in the day, if you like. Well, Conor plays centre forward, for instance, for Four Mile Water. Here he plays midfield with Four Mile Water. He's played corner back, he's played wing back, he's played centre back. We would have used him for Lohan, we would have used him for different guys over the years, Cadigan, or he's a kind of he'd be renowned for being a good tight man marker. Calum did a very good job on Tony in the match last year, albeit Tony was obviously hampered by injury. So I'd say Gleeson was saying to himself, right, Austin is wing back, so Austin will be our fella that will go from wing back in this game, and whilst you're robbing Peter to pay Paul with Calum gone, the ideal scenario for Waterford would be to have Austin on one wing and Calum on the other wing, and be able to go in those situations. So I'd imagine he thought about that, and on reflection, he'd probably say to himself, look, but I have no doubt they thought about those situations, you know what I mean? Because even as Lyons was trying to progress as the game developed, you could see what he was going to bring, and he was almost nearly trying too hard to go, and then near the end of it, if that makes sense, he was kind of trying to get the balance right between it. But even the position, not even in the corner, to full forward, Kelly was very clever. And I'm the same with TJ. I thought it was very telling. If you listen closely to Conlon's interview after the game.
Correct, yeah.
I thought that was very, very informative now for a listener. And even this morning I read the rest of the interview in the Examiner. He says, we studied Waterford hard. And if I'm honest, I'm on the outside of it, and you're on the inside of it there, Anthony. I would have said to myself, Lohan, what does he bring? He brings organisation, he brings a massive status, a presence. And I would have said to myself, right, tactically looking at the game last year in Parky Queeve with oceans of space. But Conlon says in the interview, he said, At the end of last year, we went to Brian and we told him we felt needed to be done. And, you know, and I suppose it's a coming together of the minds then. It's not the players dictate, but Lohan is a man enough to kind of say, right, this is what we need to work on. And I thought, just listening to Conlon, how they pinpointed, I thought they were the ones that, whilst Waterford contributed with Jack Pender and the boys coming down the field to freeing up Conlon, I think the boys in Clare just said to themselves, right, John Conlon, stay on the edge of the D here. Who's going to do the work for me now by covering the 10, 11 and 12? And it was Reedy, it was Aidan McCarthy, it was Colin Malone, it was Ian Galvin, and we have the two boys inside. And I just thought that was really clever out of Lohan and his management team, as TJ has already said so. And then they were a proactive team. They got the grip in the middle third. And if you have good players, like knacky players like Reedy and Aidan McCarthy, like the classic modern hurling we're calling it, was in Austin got 5 points to play and Aidan McCarthy got 3 points to play marking each other. You know, as regard for a lot of it, you know. So there's 8 points between them, and I think Aidan McCarthy had about 4 or 5 wides as well. So, but I do think I think the interview with Conlon was particularly telling in terms of what Clare have decided to do. You know, in terms of how they're going about their business, and that's a game.
That's a powerful bit of management, Derek. Like some managers we've known in the past would have thrown the ties out of the pram and say, "You won't dictate to me what way we go about this." I think it's a massive sign of show that you're vulnerable. Hold up your hand and say, "I'm vulnerable on things, lads. I might bring a whole pile of positives, but I've areas to learn at this level and to take guidance from John Conlon, Tony Kelly, Cahill Malone." You can imagine the leaders there, like, and I think that's a great sign of Brian.
That's me very friendly. It's not in any way denigrating Brian. It's more like basically we've all been in that position where you kind of throw it open to the floor and you say, lads, what's wrong here? You know, or where do we need to go? And you listen to it and you take some things on board. But again, against that, the last water break, Clare, if you watch the last water break on the telly, you can see the real Lohan coming. He's having a cut off Aidan McCarthy, and you don't need to be a lip reader, a great lip reader to find out what he's actually saying to him. I love to see that kind of. You know, we see Kinnerk and we see Kylie mixing lovely during the year as well, where the tactic board is out. But I thought Lohan, you see the real Lohan then when he was up in Aidan McCarthy's face, basically saying, you know, and one more wide, and that's it. Like he's basically, it looked like, you know, that scenario kind of, you know. So, but it's great to see the mix. The mix was great. It was perfect.
Yeah, down the right flank in the first half, Dalo, they got massive reward. Like if you took Dermot Ryan at 5, McCarthy and Shanahan down that side, they dominated there early. But there was one passage of play, to go back to the point you made at the start, Dalo, right, was that puck out they showed last night where the Waterford boys came one side of the pitch and John Conlon read it and he just popped into that pocket of space, right? And then he hits an 80-yarder down to Shanahan. Shanahan actually hits this ball wide, right? But how in the name of God, right, whether you're hurling in the 60s, in the 90s, or the 20s, right, whatever it is, right, how can an inside forward be in 40 yards of space with no defender inside? That's just, it's summed up Waterford probably that passage of play. Like you cannot have Aaron Shanahan in that pocket with nobody around. You can't. You can understand if a midfielder pops up there or a wing forward, nobody's picking him up and he's made a good run. But Shanahan's an inside forward. Like that shouldn't be happening. And that summed up Waterford for me, the way they were flat and they were a small bit off.
But like how much of the flatness from Waterford had got to do with, we say, particularly, I suppose there are 3 main leaders at the moment were probably Gleeson, Barron and Prunty, like. And Barron and Prunty were a phenomenal loss, lads. Like Prunty is the captain of the team and he's been outstanding at fullback for the last couple of years. And Jamie Barron is the engine in that team now. He's the man that's dragging the ball out of the defence and hitting into the forward, right? And can also score as well. I thought that, you know, a lot of the Waterford players ran into trouble yesterday, ran out of ideas. Even the first free that Stephen Bennett missed, I said to myself, he didn't miss hardly anything last year. And it kind of set the tone. And like after 11 minutes, it was 7 points to 1 to Clare. And Clare had hit a good few wides as well. So for some reason, Waterford wanted to pitch of the game at the very, very start. And I'm just wondering, had that a lot to do with the players that were missing from an injury point of view? And then the second thing that I noticed is that each one of the subs that came on made a huge contribution. They actually dragged Waterford back into the game. And it's hard to believe in the 69th minute of the game, there was only 1 goal between the teams. And Clare had dominated proceedings up to that point. So was there a sense that some of these players that weren't in the starting 15 should have been in the starting 15? Because you know that from being involved in teams, the players fairly know who the best 15 are or who's going well in training. And I just felt for the first 3 quarters of the game, there was some bit of a malaise with Waterford yesterday, which is unexplained. I'm just wondering, the injuries on one side, had they a part to play? And possibly some of the players that came, like Kieran Bennett not starting for me I couldn't believe it, like, because he is every day you'll play, Kieran Bennett will give you 8 out of 10 performance. He's not going to be the man of the match, but he's not going to be the first fella you're taking off either. He will give you everything. And I couldn't understand that, like, with Barron and Prunty out, that Kieran Bennett wasn't in the starting 15. Wherever he'd be playing, Derek. That was just a huge surprise for me yesterday, you know.
Yeah, look, it's look, like anything, it's debatable, I suppose, in terms of the approach. And look, we would have said, even down here, we could say, right, we're picking our forward line. It'll probably be, the 3 Bennett's, Desi Hutchison, and Peter Hogan had gone well. And I think a lot was based, to be fair, on the Tipperary league game, which is a whole different debate as regards, a league form heading into the championship. But when you look at the Dublin Antrim game as well later on, the kind of debate that might ensue around that. And even if you take that, Prunty went off at half time. Jamie didn't play that match. And it looked like we were probably basing a lot on what happened in that Tipperary match, rightly so, because Tip came with a packed team and Waterford dominated them. So, not to remain unbelievably or unrealistically optimistic, I still think that we will figure the championship. I still think that we will. Like, Liam clearly has put a challenge to the players in his interview last night. He kind of basically said, look, a lot of the players didn't perform, etc. So, the expectation is that 3 weeks preparation, Prunty back, Jamie back, a little bit of a rejig. Fellas maybe perhaps they came off the bench getting their in a possibly an easier qualifier draw when, with all due respect to Leinster, if you like, that, sometimes go back to 08 or go back to 17 when we got to an All-Ireland final, it was always this route, not always, but it was twice. So I think not all is lost. Like if we can avoid the big guns, I suppose, in the qualifiers, which is often the case.
Oh, yeah, Derek, and I didn't win a match in Munster in my 3 years, and we went on great runs every year. We didn't quite make the final, but 2 semis and a replayed quarter final against Kilkenny. You can, initially it's very difficult, I think. But when you have that 3 weeks, you can let it go down low this week. You can do a bit of talk, and you could even say, go away and drink a couple of pints and come back to me Wednesday night and, talk about it here. What's wrong here? Why do we become this team we saw last Sunday compared to the men of last year? I think that's the kind of thing, I think one of the most telling things from the RTE stats that we'd get, lads, is half-time possessions lost, Waterford 22, Clare 12. That's been at it, like, really, isn't it? That's been at it. That's been wanting the turnover, the chase back, the hook. And that's just a state of mind, really, in lots of ways. You could point to personnel. I'd say Prunty, well, Jamie Barron, sure, look, has been a brilliant player for so long. Don't get me wrong. But the Shanaher thing, well, Shanaher, you'd love to see, lads, if he finished a bit better, he could be a monstrosity for Clare. And maybe he'll develop that side of his game a bit more. Like the pass near the end of it, he should never have passed it, should he? He should have gone low to the corner of the shot. But he does cause awful disruption for the opposition. Like, and if you haven't a Prunty type there to stop him in the air, it's very difficult. Like, go back to that Wexford League game. Joe O'Connor couldn't stop him, so they put Matt O'Hanlon on him. He's a fair man in the air now. He's been deployed to mark Joe Kenning, etc. He couldn't stop him catching it. So if you have a weapon like that and you're missing your main weapon of a fullback that can gobble up those sort of players because he's good in the air and very strong physically, that's a huge loss. And him coming back would steady the whole defence, to my mind. A big one for me, lads, was being for Clare to be able to play him against Kilkenny and to be able to start him Colm Galvin. For me, like Jamie Barron missing and Clare having Colm Galvin to start, 2 fellas who would have battled it out against each other right back to your time, Davy's time, Derek, in opposition. And those 2 had some battles back to time. Yet we had our man nearly back to full fitness, I would say. Tired in the second half for sure. But I thought in that first 15 minutes when the tone needed to be set, Galvin was really rock solid in the middle.
Yeah, he's good, and he's got great presence, Anthony. You've alluded to it. He has the ability that, and I think Colin Malone as well did it well, and going back to allowing Conlon to do their job, yesterday. Like, I think they were key to that. They kind of, making it sound too tactical. They were like basically they nearly had 6 midfielders, I suppose, to allow Conlon up, to sit, if you like. And I think Galvin is vital in that, and he's cool. I don't know him now at all, the chap, but over the years, even played a really good challenge match against Clare in 17 in Thurles, actually, Donald Maloney and Jerry O'Connor's team, and he dominated that game. I remember they gave us a fair trimming ahead of the championship game against Cork at 17, and you know, he's a good player, a really good player. And as he said, like after that set against Caroline, who's a really good current player, right, and the experience of Jamie being missing against it. So it's look, he's an undoubted presence for there.
Yeah, and lads, obviously it was a huge talking point with Shane McNulty getting his marching orders for 10 minutes, yellow card with the sin bin, and the penalty being awarded for Shanahan's run, and he definitely fouled. Whether he was fouled, the advantage was given. He put it wide. There was a certain amount of confusion in the studio, I would have thought, the way they debated at half time. And last night, then the two lads, I was in the middle of trying to get out a busy crowd here out of Murty Brown's with no masks on them coming in and out. Get up, put on your mask if you're going to the toilet. But I did try and go out and tune in. And Brendan Cummins seemed to be very definite on where he saw it. So what did you think, TJ? I know from our WhatsApp page, the three of us, that you slightly differed to he.
Yeah, I was definitely of the opinion straight away that it wasn't a penalty. I thought it certainly was. He should have gone back for the free when he missed the chance. I thought the referee did well to let it go and let him have the opportunity to shoot. But for me, no way in the world was it a penalty. Now we're then going to the rule book, reading that rule book to see what does the rule book say. But for me, to give a penalty, a yellow card, and a 10-minute sin bin, no way was that merited in that situation.
Has the rule changed, TJ?
The rule has changed. We know that, and we saw the rule last night. But like from where he was, like my reading of the rule is when he swings the hurley, when he's inside the 21, but it has to be a clear and obvious goal scoring chance. And for me, that wasn't there. So for me, it wasn't a penalty. I thought it was very harsh on Waterford. I didn't think the referee had a good game. I thought he missed some clear and obvious stuff, more obvious than that. I thought it was a poor start. Like the blatant one that we'll all remember is John Connellan's wild swing there in front of Lohan right at the finish. How the referee missed that is beyond me. And I didn't think he had a great game, and I didn't think it was a penalty.
Okay, Mark, I thought it was, once it was explained, I thought it was.
But we debated this long and hard now with Fergal Horgan, right? And the biggest debate came up about if a player was fouled out by the sideline. And I remember that it should be like a soccer pitch, that you should line it, that once you get into a certain stage inside the 21-yard line and coming near the goals, there needs to be an extra line there to say, you know, if he's inside this square, we know where the semicircle is. If he's inside that, and it's a clear goal scoring chance, it is a penalty because, and a sin bin. Out by the sideline, it is not a clear goal scoring opportunity. But when I was watching it live on the television, the minute Shanahan turned Shane fives and he had a clear look at the goals as far as I was concerned, I said, there's a goal chance here, is what I felt in my own head. You go back to Caleb Lyons last year, he came in the same angle against Cork and he dropped the ball because he went towards the end line and he made the angle narrower for himself, but he got the goal from it. But my whole thing was, I felt the minute he turned him, there was a goal opportunity on. And it was careless use of the hurley. He was inside the 21. That's a penalty all day long. And as Fergal Horgan said, we'll make the decisions. We know our job. We're the referees. And the other debate about it, right, and what I want to put out, is the fact that there was nothing shut up on the RTE screen that there was a team down to 14 players. There was no stop clock up either, counting down to 10 minutes, which I'd like to see as well, because we were just wondering when is he going to be coming back on and stuff like that. I think we could improve the whole thing around the sin bin scenario. And even the commentators, I'd have to say, didn't even know that he was gone off as well. So we made that point as well to Fergal Horgan, that Fergal, and I would be a big believer, there should be a black card issued. And I'd say it's hurling versus football, that the hurling referees don't want to be seen the same as football. But I think there should be a black card shown. And I also think that the black card should show up on the RTE television or whatever television you're watching, whoever's showing it, that there is a sin bin for a black card.
I'd agree with most of what you'd say there, Mark. I think there should be some countdown or for the 10 minutes, because for a viewer, it adds to the intrigue that we're still on 14 men, lads. They can't shove forward, or I think that would be a big help. And I know Joanne Cantwell there watches or listens to the show at least. Whether she watches it now, I don't know. Could be listening on the car, Joanne, but might be a suggestion that we could, RT could introduce. I think it'd be no harm. I do think it'd be a big help. Derek, I had a few complaints on social media from Waterford people to know what did I think of it, and I didn't really go, because they obviously thought it wasn't the penalty, it wasn't the sending off. So I didn't really go arguing with them. I just said Clare were the better team, I suppose, with what they missed and everything. So maybe that stopped the arguments. But not much controversy down there, much talk.
No, and I'd be fairly tuned into what's happening here locally. You know, I mean, we had a couple of drinks last night, actually, a few of the lads, and we were just talking about it. It wasn't even the kind of the topic of conversation, to be honest with you. You know, what dominated the thought process or the conversation was more, we just weren't at it, you know, today and that kind of stuff. And, you know, so my own opinion, I didn't think it was a penalty either. I didn't think it was a goal scoring opportunity, because I think they're covering defenders. A side issue, I think the manner in which Kelly takes the penalty off his left hand and tucks it down to the right of the keeper, the skill itself to be able to do it. I think Henry mentioned it there after the game. It's some skill to be able to do that, lads, to be able to hit the ball at the force he did off your left down to the right of the keeper, you know, because, you know, most people probably think you go across the keeper off your left there. To be able to kind of get the power he did, Billy Nolan would actually be a very good penalty taker or penalty stopper down here, saver. We'd fancy him as in regards to penalties, but it reminded me of Gilligan's goal actually in 98. I was a sub in 98. Anthony, thank God I didn't get on that semi-final, praying I wouldn't get on, or a final after what was after happening at the start of the game, and I didn't get on, thank God. But Gilligan's game in 98, and Paul Flynn got a brilliant goal actually against TJ in 2001, I think, off his left down to that corner in Parky Queeve as well. That skill, I think, was well highlighted by Henry, but it was some penalty. Unstoppable, actually.
Yeah, brilliant.
We're going to have to talk about a good bit of this as the year goes on, TJ.
Can I just ask you one question?
One,
before we go away from the sin bin there, right? If Shanahan scored the goal, right? So when the advantage was allowed, if he knocks that ball,
what you're going to say, TJ?
Is it still a sin bin?
I don't think it is. And that's the thing. But of course, TK comes up and scores the penalty. Now we would expect him to, and the TJ Reeds and the Joe Cannings. But from the other side of it, if Billy, as Derek has alluded to, is a great penalty saver and saves it, you get no real advantage, you know, for the foul. So I suppose that's the balancing act.
But Dalo, to be fair to TJ's point, right, is that if Shanahan had scored the goal, there would have been no free allowed, right? Would Colm Lyons have went back and booked Shane Fives and put him in the sin bin?
No, he could have booked him, I think, but I don't think he could book him and send him off. I'm right on that. I think Johnny Ryan will tell us fairly out in the day anyway. He'll let me know. Johnny keeps an eye on us rules wise. But yeah, like, I think there's an anomaly there, you know, that's should it be still a yellow card? But I think really it's because the penalty may be saving or maybe saved that the other punishment is there to add to that. But look, we've seen an awful lot of these penalties being nailed now as well. Would you say, TJ, it'd be the first real test of Liam Cahill's management? Yeah, no, he's had tests at underage level. But like last year kind of went fairly well in that, played really well in the Munster Final. Brilliant win then against Kilkenny. Having won their quarter-final easily against Clare. And in the final, we all kind of just went, Limerick that was the best Limerick we've seen possibly since John Kiely took over in the All-Ireland final. So is this a big ask for him now?
I thought they finished with enough to tell me that there was plenty of stuff in these guys. They didn't throw in the towel. The game wasn't going their way. Do you know what I mean? They found themselves a long way in arrears. Like, I think there was a share of inevitability shortly after half-time that Waterford weren't going to win this game. But I like the way they went about the last quarter. They won it, 9 points to 4. I think if they got that free there and brought it back to 2, they're right at the debt. Yeah, they would have been running out of time. But to me, there was enough there to say that I think they'll be okay. Yeah, it's a challenge for Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens. I think the piece that they'll have to work out is in the first part of the game when Clare shut up shop, right, and situated Conlon and Colm Galvin where they had him situated, and the Waterford players kind of got caught, and it ended up with Darragh Lyons just being in those 2 minds where he just bounced the ball. He didn't know whether to move it in or pass it on. that's the piece that they're going to have to fix, right? Obviously, with Jamie Barron and some of the other guys back, it will definitely help. But when a team sits the way they did and shut off completely Desi and shut off Shane Bennett, that's the piece that Waterford have to fix. That's why Ozzy, the opportunities present themselves there. If they had more shooters, maybe around the middle of the field, would it have suited Waterford? So that's more of the challenge for him. I think the guys will be fine. I saw enough in the team and in the players to say you will get a response.
And Mark, he had a few setbacks in Munster before when he was with the Tip 20s and minors and managed to come around and beat. Remember the Cork minor team that couldn't really be beaten, we thought, or 20 team, was it? Was it minor or 20?
The Cork,
they were hot. They hammered them in the Munster final. He turned it around. So
that's right. Yeah. Oh, look, I'd be 100% behind Cahill being able to get this Waterford team going again. I do think that the Prunty and Barron were huge losses to them yesterday. When they'll have a full panel of players back and they'll look at the mistakes and the errors they made, and still to think that they were only 3 points down, having been outplayed for most of the game, you'd have to take an awful lot of hats in that. And the fact that they're getting I think there's a 3-week break to the next round. They're probably the only team that's going to get a 3-week break to the next championship match. So, if you were Liam Cahill and Mickey Bevins and the players in Waterford, they'll take their beating now and a couple of days and let it go out, because there's other matches on next week. Now they'll be forgotten about for another 3 weeks until they get back. They'll see the draw. They'll be looking forward to it. If they will get one of the, I suppose, the so-called handier draws in it, they'll be eyeing up a long stint in this championship. Yes, Anthony. But the one was Shane Bennett yesterday for me. I thought tried fierce hard and didn't achieve a whole pile. He got blocked and stopped on a number of occasions when he looked like one more step would have set him free. I thought he could have been brought to centre forward or half forward at any stage during the game, because I thought his efforts were really good. He was trying his damnedest, and it highlighted he had a goal scoring opportunity at the end of the game, and Conley came out of nowhere to block it, and he did get the shot off. But Shane Bennett has the pace to trouble a lot of defenders. He wouldn't have the same skill as what I suppose Tony Kelly had. Tony's very light on his feet, but Shane Bennett, to me, if he gets open road, he can I think hurt a lot of teams. I thought he could have been afforded the opportunity at some stage to free him up a little bit. So I think there's plenty in that Waterford team. They didn't get to a Munster final and an All-Ireland final out of nothing. The one thing that did surprise me is the amount of changes that they had, that even when they announced it before the game, that there were only 8, I think, at last year's All-Ireland final team. That's a big turnaround in players, that's in a short period of time. And I think Stephen O'Keefe, was probably missed in goals as well. Billy Nolan didn't do a whole pile wrong. I can see the one goal for penalty. But O'Keefe is a bit of a loss,
Yeah. And I think Jackie even said that last night. It was when it came up, it flashed up that there's only 8 of the All-Ireland team starting. It's God. I think even Jackie could see his reaction last night. There was really, even in Kilkenny, if that had happened and we were streets ahead of everyone else, we'd be under pressure.
Your goalkeeper, your fullback, your centre back, and your midfielder, straight up the middle, the spine of your team. There are not a lot of good men to replace.
And there was a lot of expectation on Shane Bennett, as you touched on, and I'd say, Conor Cleary is one of the most underestimated players in the country. Yeah. Conor Cleary seldom lets Clare down, doesn't get the credit he deserves, I think, and he wasn't going to make it easy for him. There was a lot of talk that back Shane Bennett for man of the match. I was hearing from some people. Cleary's never going to let him have an easy day like that. He's a tough, tight, tenacious defender.
Myself and Marco had pinpointed him as one of our players to follow for the year. But anyway, he'll have another day. Derek, what I was going to ask there is the injuries. Is there a strong possibility that they'll be fine for 3 weeks' time?
And the word is that they will, without being quoted on. I suppose. I think the general feeling is that they're muscle injuries. I think quad injuries to Jamie and to Conor. So the hope would be that they'd be okay. That's the word on the ground, if you like. But it's and I think it's ideal. Without repeating what you've just said, it's an ideal scenario. 3 weeks. I still would hang my hat on Waterford being in the semi-final of an All-Ireland final. I still think they will be one of the last 4 standing when it comes to it. I think there's a lot in the team. I think the optimism, as I keep saying, maybe came from we had used a lot of players in the league and we had kind of gone for key matches in the league against Limerick, against Tipperary, where we kind of really went for those matches in the league. I think that's and that's where the optimism came from, and we felt we'd solved the problem of Austin was at 6 against Galway, didn't go well, so we went back to Irla at 6, Austin on the wing, Austin was bombing forward against Tip, Cahill and Lyons on the other wing. We felt that we kind of had solved the issues, and I'd say what you'll see the next day is you'll see a very kind of angry Waterford team, and a team that will go about their business now in a manner. They'll be the proactive boys, and I don't think you'll see Caleb in the full back line again this year. You'll see him at wing back or even midfield, and you'll see them driving forward, and I think you'll see them mixing their game as well. You'll see them maybe. There was a lot of talk that would have been involved when I was involved. We were as well that they were kind of a running team, and they are very good at that short game, giving goals and keeping the ball in possession and that. But you'll see a mix to getting it into Desi and the boys a little bit earlier, even as well at times. Giving them the opportunity to get on ball and make things happen, if you like. But I'd be very confident that we can refix, and no better boys involved at management level to be able to fix that as well.
Yeah, and I'd say a big worry for whoever in Leinster comes out on that Waterford draw. I'd say you could be meeting a seriously wounded animal. And look, lads, you can't clear her out again next Sunday, so it's a quick turnaround to the Gaelic grounds against old rivals Tip. So won't be crowing too much about Clare, but I just do want to say we were on this show the morning after the Antrim League game, and there was a lot of talk about division in Clare and that kind of thing. And I'll tell you, there's no real division in Clare. Everyone in Clare Hurling is 99% behind Brian Lohan, or 99% of Clare Hurling is behind Brian Lohan, 99.9, I'd say. But Brian still had to put up a lot of bullshit in the 2 years he's been in there now. So mark of the man again that weathered the storm, and he has those players eating out of his hand. And I think, Derek, you touched on it as well with John Conlon's thing. He was open to his players, suggesting how he'd improve the setup, and I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and fair play. And I'd back them again this weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. But delighted for him and his backroom team. Yeah. They've all worked so hard under tough circumstances, I would say. And plenty of old trolls on Facebook and Twitter cutting the legs from under him after Belfast. Silent men again this evening. Yeah.
And just even Anthony, on a personal level, I remember when he was UL manager and Stephen Bennett would have been down there, and the support, at that level when he was involved with Fitzgibbon, for Stephen to be able to mix and match studies and hurling and life in general, was very evident when I was manager. Now in terms of Stephen's progression, boys would have been very fond of him. You just know by when you converse with Stephen, not that you be saying to Stephen, what's Brian Lohan like, but you just know by the way he was treated as a student in UL that.
And the same with Liam Cahill. We're not defined by results, Derek. It's more that story, what you were after telling there, that he was a good guy for a lad like Stephen to deal with in a college, a good bit away from home. That he could say, come here, here's your family here in UL, the GAA club, we look after you. And that's the market. And boy, you'd have that from Liam as well, I've no doubt. And this result won't be defined on him either. And all the good guys in the championship, that's they're doing their best, and it's tough, it's not easy. Not everybody can win.
What you touched on there, Dalo, was a bit like a line from Love Hate. There's always rats, Dalo, and there was always rats.
I presume the chairman and the secretary of the Clare County Board were the first fellas up to congratulate Brian yesterday, Dalo, in the dressing room as well, were they?
I was above in the front room trying to watch it away from the crowd here in the pub, Mark. I don't know who. Is there a dressing room involved even? I'm wondering at the moment. Are you still back in the stands at Thurles? But I don't know. Yeah, look, there seems to be a clear gap between the management and the county board. So I don't know. My old ally in the whole thing would be the Doc Quinn. The Doc is still in the line by since our day, in and out and looking after lads, and what a man Parry Quinn is, So look, he'd be a great man to bridge any gaps that'll be there. But look, I'd say Brian doesn't mind at this stage. He's driving on. There's good support there now with Club Clare, and they'll drive on now, I think, and looking forward to this Sunday, and hopefully a great performance again. What it brings, we don't know. Not a vintage weekend, lads. I suppose in terms of the games, I suppose it wasn't a classic yesterday by any means either. TJ, you referred to maybe stop-start a bit. I thought Colin Ryan's I thought he was okay. The penalties, the controversial bit. I thought he might have got that right. The games on Saturday, lads, I was in Nolan Park doing the co-commentary. great to see few spectators back, lads. You know, and it was only the few, and I was even saying it in the old column this morning, just to walk out of the grounds, even unlike the All-Ireland final last year, I mean, which is, no, you'd always expect to be good for your own All-Ireland final, even if it was a closed-off house that you'd meet, but you didn't. Like, you came out of Croke Park last year and you were walking up the street, like my day's work done or whatever, and you were going off trying to get a taxi back to the hotel or whatever, and you met no one to talk. And then Dublin can lend itself to that as well, but walking out of Nolan Park, of course, which is nearly the epicentre of hurling in lots of ways in the country, the Laois crowd were kind of coming out my gate, and of course, like, just stopping up, chit-chatting, and I presume they were nearly all mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, so you have to be very careful what you said. But there was just an annoyance level that they were playing deep. But lads, for me, this passive min back is murder. Like, I mean, like, every time Laois got a score, Mark Fenning was able to pick up his head and pick out a Wexford man 60, 70 yards out from his own goal. It was incredible to watch. And an awful lot of time, that was Rory O'Connor, that was Lee Chin. Yes, Laois had 9 men behind the ball at all times, but sure, they were just at nothing. And it has to be a bit like what Clare were at, like the system, free up John Conlon, but everyone else has to be like shit to a blanket in terms of marking your man and not giving your man space. I'm disillusioned with this attacking from defence mode that's overtaken your defensive duties, and I think it's wrecking teams. I think Antrim might have been caught in a different kind of a time warp that they felt it was going to happen because of what happened in the league for them, and they would play as good as they did against Clare and Wexford again. And Dublin stepped it up from league to championship, where Antrim nearly went down. I think that can happen, but what Laois were at, for me now, they have had their problems. They've lost 4 or 5 great lads to injuries, and they can't afford to be without them. That's the bottom line. The pool is smaller, but God, it was no system to watch. And I suppose just being there gives you a better feel for it. But yeah, it's a long road. And you know what the funny thing is? They could rally now for 2 weeks' time and play out of their skin for 170 minutes, and all of Antrim's progress could nearly be kicked back down the can, back down to Joe McDonough, which for me would be a travesty of justice, but it could happen.
Could happen, yeah. They'll touch on 2 things there. First of all, talk about the crowd. I think we need a change from the GAA. I think somebody in this country needs to stand up, whether it be for hotels or pubs or games. Like, we're seeing what's going on all over Europe in the Euros. Like, we know, I'm not a scientist, but reading everything that's gone on for the last 12 months or a year and a half, like, our country was as good as any of them. Like, the antigen test and these rapid tests for people to go to matches. We've 4 big locations in Thurles yesterday. We've got 2 stands and you've 2 terraces, right? Like, we can easily put bigger crowds in there. I think it's time for someone to make a move here. Someone needs to lead the charge. There's stuff going on. And like, if we keep doing what we're doing and keep playing by whatever these Netflix guys are telling us, and I have to bow to their expertise, we're going to be back in a hole again in the winter. We're not going to get out of it. We need to push on now. I'd be a big advocate is that we need 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 at these games over the coming weeks in order to push on. But that's one problem. The second thing, we're talking about the game plans and the way people are setting up, like, right? There's a couple of things in hurling. The use and the transfer of ball is key. The intensity and the pressure is key as well, right? And obviously the ability and the class and that quality. They're all the things that are playing into teams at the moment. I thought it was evident in the 2 games. Dublin ruled the sky there with Sutcliffe and Crummy. It was a kind of an old-fashioned route, but they were brilliant in the air. I thought Wexford just went after them with their game plan. Their use of their ball, they were very focused, just well drilled, well organised. But there was a difference in class and quality as well in both games.
There was, but you go back to when Cheddar had the team previously. Now, maybe it's a step too far going back again for Cheddar now after Eddie and all that. But I remember like being at their, Leinster quarterfinals and maybe even a semi-final one year, like having Galway on the rack, like, and really having them, like, after 7-8 minutes against Wexford, you're saying, no, this is going to be a long afternoon on commentary. And Dara Maloney was really on the ball, and we still managed to kind of keep it going. But yeah, you saw nothing really. And Derek, you'd have been involved there a little bit with their minors and that. Is there better players? Is it just a lack of resources? Is it just players' disillusion with the way the Eddie thing fell out?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe all of the above, but I don't know, to be honest with you. So I'm speculating. What I would say is, I suppose, that Eddie himself played with a very defensive system, but the defensive system with John Lennon sweeping, I suppose it was kind of propelled to kind of, to be the right thing to do because of the result against Dublin in a quarter final in Portlaoise, and then a reasonable performance against Tip in Croke Park, if you like. It's very hard. I think TJ's point is well made in terms of the quality. If you even look at the Ross King goal against Tip in the quarter final 2 years ago, right? Brendan Maher actually comes out and he runs over the ball. Ross King gets in. He's the only guy inside the 50-yard line, right? So I suppose the assertion is now that Laois only had one guy inside the forwards. Is that not the same as Aaron Gillan and Shamie Flanagan being inside? It's the quality. Like it's in many ways I would argue that most teams are actually trying to do the same thing. They're actually nearly trying to either isolate one or two inside. Shanahan and Kelly yesterday, for instance. Next week you might see Graham Mulcahy and Gillan or Graham Mulcahy come out the field. They'll all be back the field. They'll transfer the ball, the pace, the quality, etc. What the point you're making, I suppose, Anthony, is that is it a time for a Laois or a team on the outside that mightn't have the quality to come with something different and go back maybe more traditional, long ball in, get a big man in on the edge of the square, come with something different and maybe not try and ticky-tacky it, if you like, for want of a better phrase, like some of the other teams are doing. It's your point as well. You look at Wexford are down the road 3 or 4 years, 5 years into the way they play. They do it at a greater pace and they have a more quality player, and that's not disparaging to Laois in any way. So I really don't know how to answer the question other than say that if you have a sitting defender or 7 like John Conlon yesterday, for instance, right? Paul Flanagan then is tight, aggressive on Desi Hudson, or Rory Hayes is aggressive on Shane Bennett, and they are aggressive, they are up and at it. Diarmuid Ryan can go because they have the luxury of Conlon and they have the boys in front of them. And I think, I just think there's a gap there, lads. I just think there's a gap, and I don't know how you bridge that gap, to be honest with you. You might bridge it in one-off performances, but sustaining it over a period, I just don't know.
Like Derek, the modern teams, like playing a sweeper, we all know how effective that can be, but they're so good at using the ball. Wexford use of the ball, Limerick's use of the ball, the good teams, they just mind and transfer that ball so well now, right? That they can chop around a sweeper or even a double sweeper very smartly.
Yeah.
Jeez, lads, this is not what I'm talking about at all here now. I'm talking about playing 10 defenders and conceding 5-31. There was no defending going on. No defending.
If they went 15 on 15, Anthony, and you can
they wouldn't have conceded 5-31. No.
What Cello would be saying afterwards is, why I told you before the game we should have packed the defence. There was no way we were going to concede 5-31. So it is totally backfired. But the only time I've seen this really badly happening was actually when I was involved with Cork against Derek's team in Waterford, where Waterford would have withdrawn a number of players back and probably left maybe 4 up front versus 6 defenders. And I thought long and hard about it after, discussed it with a couple of fellas. What we found was that the 6 players never took responsibility for the 4 other forwards. And what we should have done is pinpointed the 4 defenders to mark their 4 forwards, and you actually then did have 2 fellas that were playing in a loose role, which is exactly what Clare did yesterday. All the defenders marked their men tight, and John Conlon happened to be freed up. So that to me was what we didn't learn actually between the league match we played in Derek and the championship match afterwards, is that we didn't mark the 4 fellas up front, even though they kept moving around. The 6 backs kind of more like, Jesus, 6 of us will mind the 4 in between us, like. But there was no one took the responsibility to mind the actual physical player. And I think that had a lot to do with it. But like the first clip last night in the Sunday game showed the 15 players from Laois back behind their own 45-yard line, and I said, so no wonder, so the ball was going to be bombed down to the forward line. It's going to break on a number of occasions, and scores are going to happen. And if you've good quality, like Conor McDonald was outstanding yesterday, Rory O'Connor outstanding yesterday, 1-7 and 2-4. When you have players like that and they get a half a chance, they're going to nail you every time. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, but Derek's point is well made here. Are you saying that Clare nearly were a little bit, we're not going to take on Waterford in that middle section, right? We're going to play with 2 up top. We're happy to bomb ball down on top of Aaron Shanahan. They did exactly get the man marking right, and they did, like Clare's system was a little defensive, but we're not really talking about it as much because they won the game. It was a very effective defensive system, but they did come with something a bit different. Right?
But TJ, you have Aaron Shanahan and Tony Kelly. They're the out. Like you can hit a ball from the back line to Shanahan any way you like it. He doesn't mind. And then when you have a fella like Tony Kelly, who's going to be shooting around the place, he takes an awful lot of attention from the defenders to say, we can't afford to leave these two boys. So naturally, I think some of the Waterford players were sitting back and trying to put out the ball going into them.
I know, but what Derek said there is you could easily pick a point in the game yesterday where Clare had their 6 backs, Cahill Malone, Cullum Galvin, all in their own defensive space, right? So they could have had 8 or 9 players, right? Even Aidan McCarthy might have been back there, right? So the point Derek's making there about a lot of teams are trying to do the same thing. The key thing for Clare yesterday was they did have an out ball, and they did have a system that they all bought into. They all knew and were very, very, very well prepared. And they just came with something a little bit different that maybe threw Waterford early doors yesterday. And I think that's the point that Derek was playing about. Rather than Laois trying to do the same as Wexford, the point is you got to maybe come with something different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
like Paul Flanagan didn't stand back, lads. He shoved out and marked his men. That's why you saw John Conlon popping up as almost cornerback, fullback. Whereas the Laois lads, I'm not being hard on Laois lads. I know how hard the league has been for them. I know that the injuries they've had, and they're only a couple of lads coming back for their first game. I'm not being hard on them at all. And sure, we're all mad about Cheddar, the enthusiasm. Look, you meet Cheddar, you'd love to talk hurling for the rest of your life, sure. It's just the amount of lads that were back, but marking no one. If it came to them from a hand pass or something, they would hit it. And there was no real method in that either because there was no one up. But they just didn't tackle the Wexford guy, do you know? They didn't engage the Wexford player. And for me, that just can't happen. And that's not too difficult to get right. Getting the depth and quality right, 100% TJ. But getting that bit where you number 10 Wexford, Paul Morris, you number 11 Lee Chin, you get him and stay with him. Do you know? And then the pockets are harder to find and all that. So, yeah, look, it was a big beating, 5-31. There was a definite emphasis, lads, on going for goals. And Mark, I just had to pop out for a second there to get a power lead there to keep this laptop going. So Mr. Daly has played a stormer here in the background, and we're back.
I thought that the washing machine you were plugging in there on the background because I say you had a lot of glasses to watch Dalo after the weekend.
Dalo, and 5:28
of the Clare football team trying to get in outside the window. But no.
5:28 and Wexford's total came from play. Even with that defensive system. 5:28.
3 frees.
5:28.
You're right. Yeah, and like the going for goals, lads. The boys looked at it last night, but it was definite at the time. So obviously, doing Chin certainly could have popped the one he put across. Was it for Cahill Dunbar to score? Like that was a tap over point always. But Jack O'Connor as well in with one. It was a point probably if he wanted, but there was an emphasis on going in. I liked an awful lot of what I saw from Wexford in terms of enthusiasm. You touched on it, Mark, there. Conor MacDonald, lads, looked like a lad that was as hungry, as lean, as I'll play anywhere. Do you know? Don't maybe leave me inside in the 2. Let me out in the wing. And he thrived. High ball, low ball, took his goal superbly. Do you know? They're not, if they're getting back towards 19 form, I think, and we basing off that on the league, lads, and even go back to that Waterford Tip game. Tip were no more at it in that game. Half expecting to meet them in a few weeks' time. And also, like the Cork Limerick game, we'll be looking forward to that in a couple of minutes. That Cork Limerick game in the league will tell you about as much about Sunday or Saturday night as you'll never know because it wasn't related to it. Do you know? So I think some of those league games, there was the odd league game you could pick out. And from a Waterford going forward point of view, I would have said the Limerick game. They really were, Limerick were at it, are always at it. So that was a great one for them to bring forward with them. But yeah, not much to learn there. But Davey will be. Should he stay in the box, lads?
Definitely.
Not just because there'll be a few antics on the sideline missing now. But he seemed very calm. He said to me the last time that he was suspended, remember the Justin 14? He said to me, I tell you, I nearly prefer it up there, Della. You can see more and you can sit back and judge it. But of course, the dilemma is, lads, that you're below and there's a Cody below, and Cody's the presence of him alone. And if you're feeling you're not down there to kind of match him, if you know what I mean, that you're letting your own lads down a bit, that you're kind of ducking in your lead.
I don't think the game was a good test for that Dalo either because it was comfortable from early doors, so it was easy to be relaxed in the box. Like whereas, going down the stretch, 6-7 minutes to go, game in the melting pot, Davy might feel that he's worth a point or a free maybe to his team on the sideline.
Look, for me,
maybe you work 3 or 4 to stay above them.
Moment,
maybe
he'd probably have a bit more influence with the small crowds at the moment. But I don't think a manager has any major influence on the sideline with 70 or 80,000 people, because you can't hear what the manager is saying on the sideline at all, like, you know. So, like, to me, look, but Davy gets into the games probably a bit more than, I know we all like seeing the antics in the sideline, but it's all a sideshow at the end of the day. You know, if he can concentrate more on the game above in the box from his own point of view and deliver 3 or 4 key messages during the course of the game and being calmer about it, I think that betters your team and betters your chance of winning.
Marco, do you want to give him a ring and have a chat with him about it?
No, not particularly.
Dalo will give you his number, Dave. Do you want to give him a buzz?
Yeah.
I don't know if Dalo still got his number, has he?
I have indeed. Derek,
the last time
you were going back,
to a big championship battle, turning up.
What you say?
The last time he invited you to the book launch, it was that his second book that he launched. Did you go to that one?
That night. I was training that night. I couldn't go.
Watching you there.
Derek, if it was something you were going back into, which a lot of people would speculate that you probably would go back into at some stage, inter-county manager, would you consider that? I often thought if Jim Gavin had done it, he would have changed it for everyone, and he probably still have won that particular Ireland, whichever one he sat in the stand for.
Yeah, look, I think even on the Davy one, I think he might mix and match going forward. He might decide to come down for the second half. I know Stephen Rochford used to do that a lot with Mayo, or if your team is up and running, there's no need for you to be down. I'd agree with Mark in that you have very actually little influence. You know, early on, I was never wired up even on the sideline. You know, I never had the earpiece. I always felt if I was getting too much information, my head was gone, you know, as the Bull Field would say down here in Waterford, my head was melted, you know, with information as far as what was coming into your head. So I am, I'm not sure. Again, it depends on you're 7 or 8 points down in Welsh Park in a league game and you're stuck up in the middle of a stand, I can tell you, and you're listening to it. It depends on the facilities that are available. In Croker is grand, and I think Davey had his own personalised box in Wexford Park there for years as regards, the soundproofing, and not that it'll bother you, but you can. I think that's. But in terms of being an influential figure on the line, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's applicable anymore. As regards just the whole thing. Maybe more so with the Mayor Flerna gone now, where you see, for instance, you see Mikey Beavens on the other side of the field with Waterford yesterday. You see Diarmuid O'Sullivan probably be on the other side of the field this weekend, or near Kieran Kingston doing the water, and they're all wired up. But I'd consider it, I suppose. But you'd only be doing it for the right reasons. Cody always says, I suppose, when they're in between the white lines, you can't influence it. I think you can have an influence, but I think the influence is overplayed in the media over the years as regards. I think what you're trying to say is I'd imagine Carl turns around to Beavens or yesterday is kind of saying, Cahill or Kelly's gone to full back or Kelly's gone to full forward. You're just being informed of all the different things, and then it takes a life of its own after that in many ways,
You need your on-field managers tuned in, don't you? The leaders and the fellas who are good that way. Yeah.
And that's where the Burke now was massive for Waterford. He those of you have met him, he's a lovely chap, but he's so quiet, it's unbelievable. Once he's on the field, totally different operator as regards organisation and presence,
Well, it'll be interesting to see what plan of attack Davy comes up with for Mr. Cody and the Cats the weekend. The Dubs made light work of Antrim, lads. You predicted here on the show this fortnight. Anyone who was listening, there was fellas sending texts back, but you didn't say anything. -4 points. You said nothing. I said, do you not remember what we talked about last Monday week? At Dublin with a bit to spare, and it was a nice bit to spare, lads.
Well, I think you were saying that they were 1-10 about 3 months ago, and then they were going to go 1-4. So which
that somebody else did.
Signified that there was a big swell behind Antrim and stuff like that. But I did get to the end by saying I think Dublin would win it, but our colleague from Limerick, I think, was very happy to go for Antrim, if memory serves me right.
Yeah, and our other colleague on the day from Ballynahinch. It was all about the Antrim cousins, and there was something special happening up there, and Darren was his old teammate as well. So, TJ, you fairly summed it up well. Geez, Danny Sutcliffe was back to his best of the mid part of the last decade, wasn't he? I know it was only a first round quarter final in Leinster, but it was a dominant Sutcliffe display. What I said in the paper today was that the Antrim players seemed to me not to realise there was a step up to championship. And if you look at it, the one man who did, probably Neil McManus, who's been around the block and would have played in Leinster before, he delivered a 6 point from midfield display, maybe playing as a deep centre forward with 14 on his back, but a lot of the rest of them didn't seem to sense that this would be different than a Corrigan Park type atmosphere, and everyone expected that Navan would suit them as well, but the Dubs were really ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the stuff we discussed here already is definitely coming into play again. Matty Kenny in the league, I'd say he didn't get excited about it. He knew exactly where his target was. And I think, again, all the things apply. The use and transfer of the ball, their game plan, the intensity, the pressure they put on, and again, the bit of class. I like Dublin's setup. Ronan Hayes is a brilliant focal point at full forward. Crummy and Danny Sutcliffe give him a great aerial presence in the half-forward line. And you'd also have to say, Dalo, that your buddy from last year, Donald Burke, he really is kind of Larry's buddy, the real deal in that half-forward line for sniping scores. A couple of the scores he got from range, he's very accurate. So an awful lot to like about that Dublin performance. Very, very, very positive. Yeah, plenty of pace in the forward line as well. Yeah, and you'd have to say, from Antrim's point of view, Darren had to target the league. They needed to show what they were about. He did have no choice there, right? He had to go after it and do what he had to do. It's a difficult one. But look, we clearly saw the weekend, there is a difference between league and championship. There is a difference the way teams are ready for championship. And championship ready will probably never change, right? And the league will always be the league. And you'd have to say that Matty here, he was ready for this, and they sent out their signal early. And as I said, I'd probably have to say, just what you said at the start, Danny Sutcliffe, he was unbelievable. Right and left hand, Dalo, in the air.
Yeah, he's a fair beast to go to war. Their full back line will be much more tested the next day. But I thought, watching it, that Paddy Smith, Owen O'Donnell, who's playing out of his skin as usual, Cian O'Callaghan as well in the other corner, that looks really tough, bit of class with O'Donnell as well. And I know they're going to face a different challenge with Concannon and Whelan, etc. But that match probably a bit different now than maybe we would have looked at it 3 weeks ago.
I'd say both semi-finals, Anthony, are a little bit different now, I'd have to say, because I probably would have earmarked Kilkenny and Galway to probably get into a Leinster final without a whole pile of fuss. But the two big performances over the weekend from Dublin and Wexford, and particularly the scores that they put up, 331 and 531, 330 and 531, they're massive scores to put up. Now, I know the opposition may not have been brilliant, but at the same time, it shows the capability. And I thought Crummy and Sutcliffe and Ronan Hayes yesterday, they were really, really good. And, to win any game, you need forwards that can turn 30% balls, 20% balls into scoring opportunities. And I think Conor MacDonald, Rory O'Connor, to a certain degree, if they'll get opportunities, they will be able to turn them into scores. The big thing, I suppose, is the both matches is a double header down in O'Moore Park at Portlaoise. And will that have a bearing on it's a bit different to Croke Park because you have vast open space in Croke Park, but in the tight confines of Portlaoise and stuff like that, it may have a bearing on the results one way or the other. But I thought Dublin were extremely well conditioned yesterday as well. That's the other thing. They were very physical, and maybe is that looking just at the Antrim players and stuff like that. But Dublin looked real physical and aggressive yesterday, and you're right in what you said. Now, does it take on a different complexion now in the semi-final against Galway and the Wexford and Kilkenny game? I think it does. You'd
have to say there is a change in kind of mindset even this morning, waking up and just looking forward to the weekend and what a weekend we have in store. And things didn't kick off this weekend, but we really expect next weekend we're in for a cracker. And one of the things, Derek, during the league, I saw Matty, the best, watch Sunday Sport. We were probably on it a couple of times, but Matty was Matty Kenny, he was positive nearly after every league game. You know, just, look, didn't had a chance there, faded for that period, have to work on that. But he was upbeat all the time, and I think he felt they'd come right at the right time. And for me, they look like they're coming right at the right time. Have balance. Eamon Dillon's a loss, I think. Maybe not just maybe in the start, but Trolley coming off the bench brings a different sort of a threat than Ronan Hayes does. Ronan is very good to come out to the ball, good in the air as well. Trolley is more of a get it and take on his man, direct, run and try to get the goal chance. He's a bit of a loss, but other lads have stepped up to the plate, and there seems, I think we could be in for two crackers in Leinster at the weekend, Derek.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's a different viewpoint. I would have always had the viewpoint that, you know, even the day that we I think we were on the day that Kilkenny played Wexford in the league game, where obviously it was post-COVID incident with Wexford, and Wexford didn't turn up for that Kilkenny game. And I was saying to myself, if we're pontificating 6 weeks later about Wexford planning it to a T against an ambush on Kilkenny, I actually don't see it as an ambush, to be honest with you. I think that's 50-50, the Kilkenny-Wexford game. Genuinely do. The other one, I was on a preview there a few weeks ago in Wexford, some of the clubs in Wexford, and I said to myself, I think the shock of the year could be Dublin's performance against Galway. I didn't say Dublin's win, I said Dublin's performance, and I just think Dublin have a really good team. The other thing that was very obvious in the approach to, not a really good team, what I mean, it's a good team, sorry. The approach was, because Antrim had been propelled so much into the spotlight, you know, the acceleration of what they'd done brilliantly under Darren Gleeson, it almost created a kind of a false sense of perhaps where they were, and it took the spotlight right away from Matty Kenny. So I'd say Matty had the opportunity, and in many ways, even the under-20s performance the other night, you know, against Galway, kind of probably said, Jesus, you know, it took it away from Dublin, and Dublin were able to kind of say to themselves, right, they were able to get angry behind the scenes, I think, ahead of the Antrim game, and I think you saw a combination of anger and a bit of indignation, and look, we're still here kind of a performance against Antrim, and they blew them away, lads. And again, go through the spine of the team without repeating yourself. O'Donnell, Rush, Burke, Hayes, Crummy, and Sutcliffe on the wings, and have you not 8 or 9 high quality players there that can mix it with anyone? So I just don't think, now the only thing I'd say is, and I said it last week, forewarned is forearmed for Shane O'Neill and for Cody, and the sense is there that we know what we're taking on here, but it'll be more interesting than a lot of people think, and I would have thought that for a while.
Yeah, TJ, would you give calls on it? Double header in Portlaoise Saturday evening, mouthwatering before we come to the main event, obviously with yourselves and Mr. Lander's crowd going head to head. But Leinster, TJ, give us your call and your take on it. Who's going to come out?
Well, the two favourites in the book. Like Wexford are 2-1, so Kilkenny are, I think, around 4-9 or whatever, which is very short, right? And Galway are around 1-5, which is very short as well. I think that Galway are in the top 2, like most people in the country. I think Limerick and Galway are the chip leaders here, right? I do think Dublin impressed me and most of the country the other day. They will make it more difficult, but I just think that Galway are playing at a different level. So for me, Galway will win that, right? I'm in no doubt about that. Now, my tipping at the moment, as you would have reminded me already, Dalo, isn't great. So I'm sure that Matty will be happy to hear that. And then the other one,
we won't feel belly brick, kid.
Yeah. And the other one, I'm going to go for Wexford. Like, I think that, again, Davy here, he's lined this up. He knew this was coming over a while. The league was a little bit phony for him. His team looked in great shape the other day. You have to take it, yeah, the opposition wasn't anywhere near where Kilkenny were at. And I think that he will, like, this game, it's an important game for Davy, I think. I think that he has to get this team back over his 5 years there. I know he's won a Leinster Championship. I think he needs to win this game. I think he'll have lined up from a long way out, and I'm going to give him the nod to beat Kilkenny. They have a powerful panel. Their players look good. 5:28 from play against Laois. Like the look of them. So for me, Galway and Wexford to be in the Leinster final.
Well, not too many of our listeners would have probably predicted that the great TJ Ryan would go down that route earlier this month. Even I would hasten to guess. Mark, what's your call on Moore Park?
Yeah, it's a very good. I think to be fair, TJ has summed it up very well there. I'm of the belief that Galway are the biggest threat to Limerick in the All-Ireland this year. I think they have a really, really strong panel of players, Galway, at the moment. and I think they have plenty of ammunition to come off the bench. That's the big question whether Joe Kenny is going to be fit or not, whether he will be started or not. And he was nursing a broken finger the last time we saw him when they played Cork in the league. So I would fancy Galway to beat Dublin over the weekend. I think the Wexford Kilkenny game is not as simple as what I would have predicted maybe a couple of weeks ago. I felt that Kilkenny, after 5 wins in the league, they had done what they had to do. I think probably I'm a bit of a traditionalist, I suppose, Anthony, in some respects, that I probably would give Kilkenny the nod in that one. But I'd have to say I would be concerned. I would be concerned for Kilkenny over the weekend that Wexford's performance was really, really good. But forearmed is forewarned, as the boys have already said. I think I can see Conor McDonald and Rory O'Connor coming in for close attention. And the question is for Wexford, the biggest question for Wexford is, will they be able to hold TJ Reid or not? And I think if TJ Reid, and he's what a service he's given to Kilkenny. We have a couple of younger lads coming now as well, like the Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen. If one of the two of them clicks up with a goal and 3 or 4 points, Reid will clip over 13 or 14 points, But if Reid is held, I think that'll go a long ways to Wexford winning, but I think Kilkenny will have enough to get over the line.
Okay, and Derek, are you hearing anything on the overall? I'll ask you what way you think it'll go, but are you hearing anything about Adrian Mullen's hamstring? I'm hearing that's troublesome. You didn't hear anything nearby?
I heard. No, that's sure he got a lot of game during the league, didn't he? Got a lot of league. It was just kind of with trying to get him up to the pace. So I have heard nothing now. Look, I concur. I go with Wexford. I think Wexford will win on Sunday, on Saturday, and I think Dublin will be ahead at half time, but God will take them back then coming down the stretch. So half time, full time there.
Get on, lads.
And then the Bowl Milan will be texting me after 10 minutes of Galway going to an 8-point lead, So what I do think is, I actually think Galway, kind of half agreeing with the fact that they're taking to Limerick. I think a Munster team will knock Galway out before they get to the All-Ireland final this year.
Okay.
I think a Munster team will knock them out. I think a Munster team will fancy playing at some stage.
We need to get Brian Hogan on here shortly just to balance up the Munster bias, but we do think the championship is probably stronger. I'll go. I do think, I think Dublin will put it up to Galway in Portlaoise. I think the likes of Rush will love it there. O'Donnell will love it. I think it'll be tight. But I give not Galway the nod on the basis of the way Shane has developed the panel and the way the likes of Concannon, as I said, the Manions have completely taken over. Like Joe's still very important. Dahi Burke's still very important.
Evan Nyland.
All these. Yeah, but if Joe's fit, will Evan Nyland be on? That's the. Yeah, but again, if the big thing there, Mark, is
I actually think Nyland would be playing Dalo.
Well, he's in your fantasy team, so obviously you would have gone that way. But no, I do think though that's the big thing for me, Mark, would be that if Joe is ruled out with injury, people wouldn't be reacting like they would 2 or 3 years ago and possibly making Galway favourites. Now there's another, Joe is still Joe, brilliant, but he's nearly a bonus for them now with the way they're hurling. Carl Mannion, Whelan, Concannon, as I said, absolutely, and they have the luxury of trying out Adrian Toohey, Sean Loftus up front because Darren Morrissey's playing so well, Conor Beck, Fintan Burke, Shane Cooney, all these guys have really stepped up and said, I'm at that level now, and I think that's so. I think they'll prevail there. I'd be very tempted after watching them in the flesh to go with Wexford, lads, but I still think the Cats, I think Cody has been waiting for this one as well. He know well they were going to beat Laois. I think they'll come with a level of aggression. I think this is going to be a ferociously aggressive game. And I think Kilkenny might just bring that aggression to a level that will get him over the line. I think he's been stung by Wexford a nice few times since Davy went there. And I think he maybe sensed maybe this might be Davy's last year, may not, who knows. But that he'd go on and say we need to win this one, and they'll go all out for this one, I think. So I think they'll prevail. But I like I was impressed with what I saw from both the oppositions. Yeah. So look at that. That's so much to look forward to, lads. Sorry, Mark.
just for the punters listening, right? The match is at 2:00. The Dublin Galway game is 2:00 on Saturday. The Wexford Kilkenny game is 4:30 on Saturday, and then you have the Cork Limerick game at 7:00. So if we have a glorious day, I can feel the burgers and the cider and the ice will be on early. We'll be just as well. The podcast will be on Monday, not Sunday.
Well, what if Clare win on Sunday, Mark? But look, yeah, it's a massive day as hurling, lads. The Euros, I tell you, we were here and there was a good few wanting to put on Euros here. I was working here one evening last week. It was Wednesday, and I knew Dublin and Galway was on. I tell you, I got a fair bit of grief for sticking to my guns and saying the hurling has gone on back here now in West Clare, where it's mostly Gaelic football, but you've great hurling sport. But luckily enough, the hurling match turned out to be a cracker, and they got the second half of the soccer. So, but yeah, we had the luxury of two options. But yeah, it's someday to look forward to, in fairness. And we just move on to Sunday before we come back to Cork and Limerick. Hard to know what to expect now. Clare with the match under their belt, or Tip coming in fresh with this seasoned bunch of knowing how to get it done, All-Ireland winners and all that goes with what Tip have, proven management, everything. Where is the advantage now? I know by nature the bookmakers and that kind of thing will make Tip favourites, but like as hurling people, do we feel the match? They didn't get any real injuries, Clare. I think that's been reported this morning. The clean bill of health after it. Shane O'Donnell will come back into the equation. David McInerney got 25 minutes good game time in there. Fellas like Ryan Taylor had great first halves. I thought, there would have been a few. Mark Rogers made his debut, although Sean Doyle won't be too happy as the under-20 manager with that one. But, it's where's the advantage line for Clare Tip?
Well, for me, Anthony, I'd have to say it's Tipper forewarned on Kelly and Shanahan actually on the inside. That's the first thing. And I suppose on the other side of it is John Conlon. Now, I'd be definitely putting a ball player on Conlon, because you can't afford to leave John Conlon sweep the ball that he swept over the weekend. So for me, Tipperary will probably end up putting Noel McGrath. I'd say definitely maybe centre forward, and John Conlon will have to end up marking him now.
Well, so Clare detail someone else to mark him. Mark, they won't let Noel McGrath.
So do you think Clare will actually go with a sweep or so, Dalo?
Oh yeah. Well, they'll man mark Noel McGrath. They won't let Noel McGrath go out and have the freedom of Limerick. They'll say, Colm Galvin, you get. And Aidan McCarthy line out to corner forward again. He'll come to wing, and whoever's wing will come out on Galvin's man. You can't leave Noel McGrath loose there.
And the one team in the country which Limerick are brilliant on the loose ball, but Tipperary are probably the next best hurlers. We say 1 to 15 in terms of their stick work. And you saw that a couple of years ago in the All-Ireland Final when Richie Hogan was sent off. The minute they got the loose man, they would have the ping balls left, right, and centre and score from distance as well. I think it's a big advantage to Tipperary that the Clare have actually showed their hand now. But again, could Lohan bring a rabbit out of the hat and stop Shane O'Donnell inside and play TK centre forward maybe at the weekend? So there's a good few subplots that could happen over the weekend coming up, and there will be a bit of head scratching. But I think Tip will be fresher. The game will definitely bring on Clare, but it does take a bit out of you lads when you play a championship match, and Clare might be flat, everything might have been channeled into just this one game against Waterford, and they might turn up a little bit flat next weekend. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, all our Clare avid listeners to the podcast will be delighted that verdict has come from Cahill this morning, and they'll be thrilled to bits with that consistency remains. So we're in with a right chance, lads out there. I suppose it'll be 3-1 here anyway, TJ. I suppose you'll be going Tip as well, like.
I probably will. I suppose when it comes down to
sympathy votes, do whatever you said.
I to go back to your question about the advantage, right? It's sometimes in the GAA and championship, it's great to have a win under your belt, because like in a situation where Lohan was coming off, like that bit of fill up of confidence and belief, and that like cementing of the buy-in of what Lohan is doing, I think that's huge for Clare. No doubt about that. I think tactically he got everything bang on. And I do agree with you. Like what I've seen from them tactically, they're going to be very wise to the moves. They're going to expect Noel McGrath to be a drifting off centre forward. They'll probably expect that either maybe Cahill Barrett or Brendan will be deployed to pick up Kelly. They can position Kelly maybe in the middle of the field if they have to. So there's a lot of aces that Lohan has to play. So tactically, I think that you'll see something different. Tip are definitely forewarned now that they know what to expect. The little bit of a worry for me about Clare, Dalo, is that they should really have had Waterford put to the sword much earlier. They were just so far ahead of them. They should have got more scores. They had enough possession. What's the register? 23 wides. A lot of them probably not under as much pressure as Waterford would have liked. So I'm going to go with Tipperary as well. I think that they have the class to get scores. They'll definitely score more than 21 points. They'll cause Clare plenty of problems. So yeah, Tip.
Okay. One of the things that kind of consoles me, Derek, is that you seldom see a team shooting that kind of wide count again. Now, maybe the shot options, you wouldn't have 31 wides or 23 wides. You wouldn't have that again because they will talk about not taking the lotto shots, to try and hit Shannon with those, even recycle them back behind you where there might be a better option. So somewhere in me, I think we'll be better on that front. And some of the ones that were hit wide will be nailed, I think, the next day. And I think, if we can get a goal at some stage, I think we'll rack up more than 122. So, but obviously the opposition have potential to rack up goals as well.
Yeah, it's probably an ideal scenario again for Brian in that they'll have the confidence and the momentum from the win, but I don't think there'll be a pundit that'll tip him by yourself to win the match. As a guy, it's a kind of, and with due respect to the people involved in Clare, I think it's a really ideal scenario. It's kind of, and again, it probably fits in. You obviously know the man a lot better than me. It probably fits in with his character in terms of the defiance that he can insulate the boys again this week, saying, "Look, we're being written off. There's no one, there's no one kind of giving us, not credit or not that he's looking for credit or anything, but certainly it can be a fairly angry dressing room again this week with the focus on Tipperary. And that the interesting one with Tipperary, I suppose, is the anomalies around their performance against Waterford in the league. And they named the full team. I'd argue that was their first, certainly 12 or 13 of their team, called Barrett, Padraig Maher, Barry Heffernan, Shane Kennedy, Brendan Maher were all in the backline, Ronan Maher. So that was probably their backline, certainly. So I just don't know. I don't know. I think the expectation would be that Clare would start well, based on the momentum they have from last week, and that maybe that the tip would be kind of will their game plan change? For instance, Clare, what were they preparing for Waterford? This counter-attacking game where Waterford come back the field and they come forward in waves. Are Tip more traditional in terms of their approach? Like, are they more kind of? So will Clare's game plan change? Should it change or will it change? I'm not sure. Does O'Donnell come back into the fray? Do they take Kelly out of the equation and put him at 12 or 11 or 10? The expectation for me is that Clare will play well, but that Tip will win the game, I think. You know what I mean? I think, and Clare come back in the back door then as well. So I don't think Galway will be lost in defeat either for Clare on Sunday next.
I think it has to change, Derek, to some degree. Again, I think you can't bomb ball down on top of Paddy Maher, Ronan Maher, Brendan Maher, Barry. Like they can't do that. So I think to some degree it has to change.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything now, TJ, but I'd expect O'Donnell will come back in.
Yeah,
I'd expect O'Donnell could be positioned at full on Paddy and drag him and run him, and every time he gets it run at him, I thought. He didn't deliver yesterday, but Shane Bennett caused him huge difficulties in Watch Park, I thought, by movement and running at him. And we all know how highly we all regard Paddy on this pod, like an S4 hurling men. But I'm just not so sure about the full back thing. I don't think they have an option at this stage. I see Shanahan maybe operating up there with him, but more operating to top of the right and trying to get any high ball, it goes down top of the right. This is only my thinking now. It was where I was talking to Lohan last night. No, I wasn't. And I'd say he does himself the favour not listening to this during the week in case something. And I think you could see Tony Kelly back in midfield for this one. I really think you could. So who'd drop out, I'm not sure. But I think not 100% the chain will be fit to play. It was a concussion. There's protocols to be followed. So not 100% sure. Then I think if he's not clear to play, then you're under a bit of pressure as to what you do. But there is a couple of options. I think Clare, to my mind, were a little bit completely written out of the equation after the first couple of league games. And I thought that was very false. But you couldn't open your mouth about it, of course, after losing in Belfast and throwing away a lead against Wexford and Ennis. And I think Clare didn't go way back from the team that could have won an All-Ireland in 18. Now, Limerick were worthy winners, but a Clare-Limerick final could have been an awful lot different than it got now. Limerick looked to have kicked on to another level, and let's face it, after last year, we'd all agree to that. But I think we're better with Colm Galvin back, with Ian Galvin back fully fit. I think we're an awful lot better. An awful lot of players like Rory Hayes has stepped up to being maybe the second best cornerback in the country in some ways, behind Sean Finn. So there's a lot to be said for the way Clare are. Maybe we'll come up short. I don't know about these fellas. There hasn't been massive experimentation. It's much the same as the 19 team, I think. And where are they 2 years on? I think a lot will be answered on Sunday. But I give Clare a good shout. I wouldn't say, I'd be sticking my nose out and having a few quid in them, but I think they're a shout, and I think they'll be written off by everybody, as you said, Derek. And that will suit everybody around the camp. The big one is obviously Saturday night, lads. The two, the All-Ireland favourites and everybody's favourite team coming without winning All-Ireland, 16 long years. But surely, lads, the underage success has been incredible there. Surely this is the time to take out Limerick in a Munster semi-final and put them in the back door. Mark?
I don't know. We're getting the underage success from Dalo. I mean, we've had a lot of underage teams, but we haven't.
So every tournament, 14, 15, 16, 17, Mark, Cork were winning the A and B every single year. Joe McKenna used to ring me, and great to hear Joe is on the mend as well after his big surgery. Fantastic, Joe. We're wishing you all the best. If you're bored and you're listening to us, it wouldn't really be a podcast, man, I'd say, but if he was put onto it, he'd listen to it. Great to hear Joe is doing so well. Serious surgery, and mighty to hear the big Joe. But Joe used to ring me. I'd be at the under-16 A tournament or whatever in my role in the academy, and he'd say, "Who won that?" We're beating in the semi-final by Kilkenny. Would say, "Who won that?" Cork. Who won the B? Cork. What about the 14s? Cork. B. Cork. Like, it's like,
and Dalo,
I would say that was underage success anyway.
Dalo, sharp price to win last year's under-20 All-Ireland, which is happening shortly. Sharp price for that as well. Cork.
Correct. Upcoming.
Yeah. Well, we've been beaten in 2 under-20, a 21 and a 21 final, and we were top to 3-1 on to win the first one. That was the famous one that Liam Cahill, after we beat them in the Munster final by 9 points, turned around to be playing with a gale force breeze down in the Gaelic grounds and up 2 points at half time. There was no betting, but anyway, we got beaten, and that has been a problem for Cork. We failed to get over the line in the big games, and I suppose that under-20 final this year is going to take on a big significance, Anthony. And you mentioned one of the Clare players. There will be a lot of people in Cork will be saying, the likes of Alan Conley and Shane Barrett, they're underage for under-20 again next year, which is this year, sorry. There'll be a lot of fellas hope that they wouldn't be playing senior on Sunday, that the under-20 is very important as well for the development of Cork. So we would be contesting 4 All-Ireland finals in a row at under-20 level. So there surely must be some bit of talent coming that we can bridge that 16 years of an All-Ireland. But look, Limerick won 3 under-21s a couple of years back and never got an All-Ireland out that team at that time. So just because you win it underage doesn't guarantee you any success up along the line. But I'd say the match on Saturday night, from a Cork perspective, I'd say a lot of uncertainty is the first thing, is what I would say. Nobody seems to know what the makeup of the 15 will be. I could tell you what the 15 or 14 of the players will be, but as to where they'll be playing, where will Shane Kingston be playing, where will Seamus Hamilton be playing, don't know. Where will Damien Cahill be playing, don't know. Tim O'Mahony, jury's out now on Mark Coleman after the first couple of matches. He was outstanding centre back, but the last couple of league matches, he was probably under a lot of pressure, and there will be a lot of question marks whether he should be centre back now at this moment in time. So, look.
In fairness, Mark, you've been saying this for quite a while now, that you could nearly tell us the 15, but where they'll be playing. That's a bit unbelievable now at this level, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, I know that Kieran Kingston and Shane actually had an article over the weekend. They were both saying the same thing, which is Cork were delighted with the league, that they gave something over 30 players a chance in the league. Have they found something? You have Jack O'Connor, I think, from Sarah, and John Melrick from Father O'Neill's have put their names forward, I'd say, for a starting position, and I hope both of them will play on Saturday night. I think that they weren't being played, and I think they deserve to be played as well. So, and I think that's, that to me is important from a player's point of view and a supporter's point of view that, you know, fellas that have put up their hand do get the nod. Now, look, I suppose a lot of stuff happens away from the matches, the league matches that we're seeing. And we've seen teams that played well in the league this year and did play well in the championship, particularly Antrim. So, like, I suppose whatever's happening in training, hopefully it'll be reflected in the team that's been picked. But I would be fearful for Cork. I would say, like, I know in my heart and soul that the one team that can beat anybody would be Cork. And we won't be one bit afraid about going down to play Limerick, even though they are the best team in the country. And Limerick will openly admit it. They will be, I'd say, wary of Cork now because of the way the performance has gone over the last number of years. And we have beaten them and looked like beat them in the 2019 semi-final, but didn't get over the line. But I'm not convinced that Cork have kicked on after the first 2 league matches this year. I think their spirit has been damaged slightly by some of the poor performances that came afterwards. But then, and there's another part of me that would say, of all the teams that are out there that could bring on a performance, it is Cork. So, like, I think Limerick will win the match on Saturday evening, but it wouldn't surprise me if Cork won the game either at the same time. Okay,
a bit of a chance. Derek, was there a bit of a shadow even over Waterford yesterday? This might sound bizarre now, but I felt that teams are looking at other ways to set up and maybe attack a game with Limerick in mind. And they might have, like the Waterford of last year playing to that sort of game, might have had enough to beat Clare, but maybe they're trying to change the style a bit and play a more running game or maybe hit space more. I'm dying to see who'll come up with something to beat the Limerick 10, because going at them in the middle 8 is folly for me.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's hard to know. I'd imagine Waterford had their eyes on Clare, nothing else now. But, you know, I suppose during the league, I suppose, if you look at teams that have troubled Limerick in the last few years, I suppose Waterford in the league game this year, not troubled them, but, you know, they stood into them, I suppose. So there was a motivational aspect to that where they've been beaten for the last... We got hammered by him in 18 down in Limerick. You know, I think the last win we had was actually the semi-final of the league of 16 against Limerick. I think that was the last time we had beaten. Sorry, TJ. No, that was the last. So I think there was a motivational aspect to that. That's where I actually think it's going to be harder for that's where I think Limerick are kind of hell-bent on Cork at the weekend in that. You know, even listening to interviews over the last few years, I remember reading an interview with Hannon 2 years ago. He said Cork troubled us with the game that they play, and that subsequent first round in 2019 or the second round, John Myler had lost. I think they lost their opening match against Cork. Had lost their opening match, had they? And Limerick were beaten, or Cork beat them down in the rain down in Limerick. And so I think Mark alluded to the fact that he said, you know, he still kind of said that there's a Corkness there that could materialise, I suppose, on Saturday. And we all accept that, you know, allied to the fact that they have quality players. So to go back to your original question about other teams setting up, I'm not sure the answer to that, to be honest. I think teams are focused on it, but I do think that Limerick are kind of said to themselves, right, you know, a lot of times we showed a clip of Shamie Harnedy being dispossessed by Nicky Quaid, right? At the end of 2018. Then we referenced in 2019 Cork beating Limerick. Even the day where Galan was sent off down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in 18, Limerick came back and got a draw. So Cork are the one team, I suppose, that Limerick have to kind of take off their perch in terms of the one-to-one meetings that they've had over the last couple of years, where Cork have traditionally kind of troubled them, I suppose, bar the league game this year where they actually ran over them. So I think Limerick have their sights on this. Do I think it'll be as comprehensive as the league game? I don't. But I do think, nonetheless, that Limerick will be ready to go to war. Will they come with something different is the question for me. TJ will know more about that. Like, will they just, this is the way we play and figure it out. You know, I keep going back to a challenge match in 17 again. We played Limerick where Garrod Hegarty on the edge of the square against us. He caused rack against us down in we played a behind closed door challenge match in 17, and Hegarty just caused some damage to us down our inside, you know, and I think they have the ability to, I'm still waiting, you know, if Nash and Richie English are deemed fit enough, will there be a match this year where Hayes is up at 11, where he goes back there, and will there be difference brought? Keane Lynch, you know, how does Mark Coleman deal with him at the weekend? Who picks him up, you know, when Mark Coleman holds the centre? There's massive loads of things that...
Brilliant stuff, like, think about it.
with respect to David Reedy, and he's a good player, like, Lynch is a different, and if you go back to the early in the All Ireland, Hyde was in a quandary as well. Like, how does he go at Lynch but also protect the D? And it's Jesus. There's too many things to figure out if you want me to be honest.
Is the Empire very secure? TJ, the Gaelic grounds is looking splendid there behind you. I hope it's looking good for us on Sunday. Tell Spike have the grass cut there and everything, will you? But yeah, everything going okay. Very quiet there the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
okay, quiet. You had the Westmeath match to finish up the league, so there wasn't much talk about that. But we just expect an explosion, I think, Saturday night.
Yeah, and even the footballers kicked 4-18 in the Gaelic grounds the weekend, Dalo. So I think that if the hurlers hold their form, which we expect they do, I think we'll do the double over Cork. So the weekend, Saturday night, I think, Derek, the point, I suppose, key for Cork for the weekend is their own puck out. We all know what happened in the league. It was a meltdown. Can they and have they fixed that are key questions. Seamus Hannity obviously is an outlet. Will he be playing, Mark?
He will be playing, yeah.
He will be playing. So that's a key point. There were positives, even though that league game, as you said at the top of the show, Dalo, won't bear much resemblance, I don't think. Cork created a lot of goal chances in that game, which is a positive for them. They scored 18 goals in the league, which is a positive for them. But a lot of things went wrong from that night. So their own puck out is key. I don't think, Derek, that you're going to see anything majorly different from Limerick. If there is, I'm not aware of it. I think it'll be a straight shootout between Barry Nash and Richie English for the number 4. And I think it'll be a shootout between Graham Mulcahy and Peter Casey for the number 15, depending on those players' fitnesses, right? I think the rest of the team is going to be as is. Keane was majorly influential in that league game with the puck out and breaking them down and linking the play. Like, he was massive that particular night. Like, could Limerick have kept that and for the championship, a bit like what Clare did? They didn't. So Cork are forewarned now. So for Cork to have a right shot at this game, Mark, their puck out has to go well for them. They have to be successful there. We're probably fairly sure that Limerick will get 40 shots at the posts, so there will be 40 puck outs, right? So for me, I can't see it. I don't know what the Cork makeup of the forwards is. And right now, looking at it from where I am, like, obviously with green eyes, I can't see Cork bringing enough to the table to get the scores and turn them over, as you said. I just can't see it, Dalo.
Yeah, and like Mark, you said here after the league game that you said, well, at least, no, it wasn't you. No, we referenced it here. It was Don Logue said it, I think, I hope I'm not misquoting him, but he said that, well, at least Patrick Collins is getting the opportunity to practice what he's going to face. Now, will that practice, will that turn into a nightmare, though?
Well, you see, like, I put this one out. If Cork go with the same puck out strategy that they went in the league and it becomes a meltdown again, well, I can tell you this much. Call me a fool once, like, but I'm an idiot twice, like. That's the reality. Yeah. So, like, if that happens, like, there'll be a lot of P45s, I can tell you, on Monday morning. That's the reality. But that's the way I would look at it anyway. And the fear is, and I suppose I've been listening to a lot of the commentators over the last couple of months, they stuck to the process. They stuck to their guns. But, like, if you get a trimming, having been forewarned about what Limerick are capable of doing once they push up on the puck out, that is a problem for Cork. And I do believe that Seamus Hannity is the outball. And I do believe he should play centre forward and Declan Hannon. And I wouldn't be putting the ball down on top of either the two wings and Kyle Hayes or Diarmaid Burns. And I would have runners then, and I would have Shane Kingston and Robbie Flynn coming in under that breaking ball under Hannity. And Patrick Collins can land the ball down inside on the edge of the D, as far as I'm concerned. And if you have the likes of, we'll say, Jack O'Connor or Patrick Horgan skirting around behind that breaking ball, like, is there a possibility that Cork might go along in the puck out on Saturday night? Like, that is something now, a bit like TK. And a number of years ago, we played Galway in an All-Ireland semi-final, and we were playing all short puck outs and next of all decided to go long. And it was only after 10 minutes they realised, oh Jesus, there's no short puck outs coming. So is there a possibility that we could see that next Saturday night?
And Wexford did that to Kilkenny in the Leinster Final in 19, when nobody saw them going long, and just boomed it down and maybe targeted a younger Hugh Lawler at the time. and put McDonald in and at least break it, and they savaged onto the breaks. And it might be a way of getting some change. You don't feel when you look at Burns and Hayes and Hennon in the middle that you get much change, but maybe with a Harnedy that change can be garnered.
I can't see him getting it in the air. I can't see him getting it in the air, Mark. Maybe go along, maybe with a purpose of trying to hit grass, which is difficult against Limerick, or some sort of a long puck out. But like bombing puck outs down on top of Derek Burns and Kyle Hayes. Jeez,
but I don't. No, they won't do that. They won't put the ball down on the two of them. But I would have no issue putting Harnedy in centre forward and Declan Hennon and bombing the ball down on top of him. Now, Robbie Finland has a very good hand as well now.
I know, but with all due respect, even down the middle there, like Declan Hannon's going to knock it down, and William O'Donoghue's going to be sitting there. Like you know the way they'll set up. Like,
yeah, will Bill Cooper be in there, Mark?
Bill Cooper only played an A versus B match for the first time over the weekend. I didn't get any report back as to how he came through the game, but it'll be a massive call for Cork to play him, particularly when he hasn't done any training. But of all the players that I would play without having trained would be Bill Cooper. I would leave him go as far as he can go. But like
he's like a Bill Cooper type in around Will O'Donoghue, Dara Donovan, whoever's going to be there. Like Jesus, I don't know. Could you go with Luke Meade and Dara Fitzgibbon? I don't know what change they'd get from those two lads.
Yeah, it's a big call. A fella's only coming back a week before and hasn't done a huge amount. It'll be, it's the balance between how much he's done and 40 minutes out and take him off with the game still in the melting pot or possibly ahead, and then go on from there with the legs. It's a big call. Look at Cork's big players, Fitzgibbon, Harnedy, Kingston, fellas that can run and play. They're going to have to be right up at it, like, you know what I mean? And the other thing, I suppose, is we're talking about puck out policies. Even if you look at the Limerick semi-final against Kilkenny, where they had the advantage of, I know Harnedy's good in the air, but they had the advantage of TJ Reid going along, and TJ is able to win the ball all the time over whoever, you know what I mean? But the thing about Limerick is they'll filter back so much as that ball is in the air. Are you just going to break it down to, your deep Hegarty or deep, Tom Morrissey or deep Keane Lynch or Donoghue, and then they're just going to work it through the lines on the way out? It's so difficult. The one thing I would say, in the league game, I thought Limerick's puck out strategy was slightly different in terms of how they set up. They push right up. They normally come the traditional Kilkenny kind of approach, 5 or 6, where they're about 5-10 yards off. It was kind of slightly different in that, they were right up on their main, and they were saying, Cork were obviously saying, we're trying this tonight and we're sticking with it no matter what. So I think you'll see a slight bit of difference from Limerick's approach. I don't think they'll be they might even have the 2, 3 and 4 have it and not have it and then swarm them, whereas they were nearly up right alongside of him in that league match, from behind the goal.
Yeah. A fair bit of mind games in there from Kylie, wasn't there? The Kingston is there now. Will we have to go along, or will we be able to ping it to Cahill or Sean O'Donoghue? Let them off with it. They hold all the aces, lads.
Yeah, I would love to see Damien Cahill be moved to the middle of the field and Will O'Donoghue, and I think he would be a good fit with Dara Fitzgibbon. I would love to see Will O'Donoghue and Cahill.
Who would you put on Gillane? Will Owen Cadigan be fit enough to take on?
Sean O'Donoghue or Cadigan would go on Gillane, and whoever's, and Shamie Flanagan, the two of them, Cahill and Sean O'Donoghue would pick up, to me, Flanagan and Gillane. I would love to see Sean O'Donoghue and Gillane.
I think you'd pay money to see a fit Owen Cadigan and Gillane. I'd pay money for that one anyway. If we could get
Cadigan's a good record there too, though.
That's been saucy.
Sean O'Donoghue is a very underrated cornerback, lads. He's a real hard man.
Dalo, I think all our predictions there is a good character in Matlan, right? Patsy Ryan's his name, the Gatty they call him. He's an uncle of Jim Bob's actually, right? But when there be conversations going on like this about who you'd play where and like who's best man for full forward, right? Gatty wouldn't say anything, but he'd be at the counter, and all he'd reply is, "And you know." That's all he'd say, right? And he's just going to make everyone feel very small. Like, so he'd be making this great statement. I'd play this for the full back, and I'd play this for in the middle of the field, just like you were saying there, Mark. And he'd reply with, "And you know."
There's some amount of expert. There's lads, I was collecting glasses late last night, and I do appreciate the lads had a good few pints drank, but a few of the opinions on the Clare Waterford game as regards individual Clare players, I just said, keep going. Yeah, you're right. I said, because I was going to argue. I was on a loser anyway.
You have the answer for them now. And you know.
And you know.
It's a great one. Tom Mack in Crusheen, famous character, still going well by Tom Mack. He was a Clare selector one time, and John Henley from our club, Lord to mercy him, he's not buried long. Henley was caught at some Munster Council meeting, but he was the chairman of the selectors, and he arrived back, and they were sick of waiting for him, so they picked it. And Henley looked at the team. They'd handed him the team. Here, Henley, that's the team, says Tom. And Henley looked at it. Yeah, he said, I'd agree with 14 of the 15. And Tom said, oh, shut up, Henley. Our Lord himself had only to pick 12. And wasn't that a bollocks in it? So, there you go. That's a true story. Tom was legendary right for the fast ones. Yeah, Crusheen for it. Tough boys out there. But yeah, lads, I suppose we can't see an upset. We can maybe see, we're intrigued to see what Cork will come with and where they can use that brilliant pace that they have, and can they trouble Limerick on that front. But
Dalo, can I just clarify one thing, Mark? Did we all go for Limerick? Just so I have the old prediction, so there's no kind of question marks. Yeah. Is it all Limerick? Or Marco, did the heart rule the head, or?
No, I went with Limerick. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cork.
No, you can't.
You're covering your ass there, Mark.
No, you can't.
Well, TJ, in fairness, as your man would say, TJ, as your man would say, and you'd know, because he's new standing now with the fantasy hurling. He's much more confident in himself. He's much more relaxed. He's a top of the table sort of guy, even though Ken Hogan put paid to that. But lads, Imo Killy won championships under that man. Killa won championships. It wasn't as much preparation put in over the weekend. I spoke about a Clare selectors meeting. Look at this, with the paper, with the Pringles, with the Rockshore, the iPhone, the paper, and the man is addled. But look, the work went in, the tiredness crept in. Look at that, like. Is that Spider-Man there, don't tell me. Look at Crocs with socks on as well. Disgusting. Crocs and socks. Will you get with it, chap, will you? But, like, you have to say, you put in the hard work. Pamela Cahill is called in as chairman of the selectors, and he did the work, and you're still on his second. How's that, like? Han the Queen, 205 points. Like, Jesus, you're still 20 behind.
I tell you, I am so delighted, right, to be off the bottom, right? I'm speechless. And the fact, Dalo, that I'm about 60 points ahead of you now, and that you're down near the bottom, there's a big interest in this fantasy hurling for the rest of the season now. And as TJ told you before, it was only the league, the last one. Like, this is the championship, like.
It's championship,
looks like anything else. Like when Dublin winning All Ireland after All Ireland, there's no point really in me dominating this the whole time and Larry coming in for the odd one. So it's good to see it going around. It keeps things healthy here. Derek, you're loads of time to enter because you'll catch up that 205 points. No bother this weekend.
Sorry, I'll get in there.
No team there this week. Yeah. Like Hoagie's already certainty for the wooden spoon. So there's not. I'm not at the end. Mid-table will do me. Champions League football will do me for next year.
See, I got some amount of lads like off of TJ.
Sorry, Mark.
Some amount of Twitter activity. On this night. Phyllis from Clarecastle there, and they're sending me on. Hey, make sure you mention me tomorrow there. I'm top of the local league. Like, and jeez, like all excited. Like, but look, Huller on the ditch, who's a good outspoken man now on Twitter in general, and was given out during the whole National League. You were Hurler about transfers, and you wanted more transfers, but you're top now, and you have no excuse because you're making all the running. But can you lead from a Thursday evening in a major, Cave? 282 points there. Hats off to your Colm Keaveney, who always seems to perform well. Brian O'Loughlin up there. I don't see Brian Coos, but look, it's early days. We'll be shaping our team now for this week. Gearóid Grogan, I have to give him a mention here in the parish of Shannon Gales, Kilmurray, McMahon, neighbour down the road. But look, it's early days. It's nothing that a big captaincy performance, a change of captaincy and a big performance won't sort in the next couple of weeks. And you stick a twist with the Antrim lads.
I saw Huller and Ditch's team as well, Dalo. I don't think he'll be leading next week. I think his a lot of players won't be in action this week, so he could struggle. The other thing is the Monaleen under 11 team in the junior side. I got a WhatsApp from them to say they were going exceptionally well. They've all scored. Most of them have scored more than me and you, Mark. So obviously they know their stuff. But the only points I'm going to make, myself and Mark were desperate and lucky. If Shane Bennett had got one or two scores, Dalo, myself and Mackie would have been right at the very, very top, which was a small bit unlucky there now. So the homework was done. The homework was done.
He was in my team as well. Sure, he was in everyone's team, TJ, because he was in as a defender. Like,
I know, but from what Mackie was doing there, we know the 7 P's come into play. That proper prior planning prevents the poor performance. That we know that. Like so, Marco was on the ball. You know,
you're watching too many fucking pendulum summits there.
Before we finish up, right? I just want to send condolences to the Dooley family in Knocklang. Dan Dooley, he had car business, would have been well known throughout the country and probably all over the world. He passed away over the weekend. His son Jim was instrumental in everything that Gary's Plan has done over an awful long period of time. And his grandson Andy is actually currently playing for the senior team. So he's just an iconic figure there at the cross of Knocklang. Anybody who's ever passed through the Sleepy Village, you can't miss the Dan Dooley sign. So unfortunately, he passed away over the weekend.
Yeah, we concur with the condolences. You're right, TJ. When we were trying to avoid Buttevant there going to Cork,
correct.
we all went across your country there for a while and back out at Mitchelstown, back onto the other motorway. So yeah, condolences to the family. Obviously, huge influence in the area. We've gone on a bit as usual. Great stuff though, Derek. Great to hear the upbeat Daisha this morning, confidently predicting top 4 at least finish for. So all our Waterford listeners, that's if he's saying it, who are we to disagree? I think Waterford had too much form outside of yesterday to say that they won't be in the shake-up. I certainly believe as well that you're right there. And as a Clareman, I'm just hoping that we don't know that the good work of yesterday go down the Swanee to that crowd, Larry Ryan's crowd, the old nemesis there, TJ. Okay, you never know. The old Gaelic Grounds has been good to us over the years. You never know. She just might. Queen, Mark, how is she? How is the hamstring?
The hamstring is good. She walked with Jimmy Mangan there yesterday. A good chat with Jimmy. And she worked well, so she's being entered for Wexford for next Friday night. And her half-brother, the toothpicker, is entered for Thursday in Tipperary in a bumper, first time out.
How was
with Mr. J. Codd on board?
J. Codd taking the ride?
Yeah, J. Codd by. No, he's eighth in the ballot, so he mightn't get in. But we're hoping that
your tracker guy is the toothpicker.
There you go.
Codd rings and Codd looks for the ride on these ones. I know well. TJ, what's your take on this?
To be honest, I wouldn't know anything about it. I didn't know that they was interested in see the horse ride, so I'll have to do a bit of homework on it. I was going to say my final piece for the day, Dalo, is to the GAA. Can we get the fans back at the matches? We have 2,400 going to Limerick and Cork Saturday night, right? I'll be making a phone call to a good buddy of yours of mine now shortly to Mr. Michael Reardon to try and see can I get into any part of the ground.
Mike, can't let down a former manager, former star.
Yeah.
Don't forget me, TJ. Put me into the pot.
Which is Mackie, whatever about trying to give them to any Limerick people, I'd be shocked if I give them over the border. Huh?
Tony Lean should nearly be getting the 4 of us tickets, lads, to get in there for the examiner for the podcast and everything. Like, so I think, Derek.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Because we can't really see it all, especially Sky's coverage don't be hectic, like, so we can,
If Tony got us that, we could organise accommodation in Limerick on Saturday night, and we could get both of them.
Oh, you're talking. I'm on duty Sunday though. I'd have to be minding myself. I'd say not be joining up with you.
We could put you in bed early. Closing time is 11:30 or something, there, wasn't it?
That's the one good thing about the pubs being busy and everything. We're at home at 1:00. Normally in places like West Clare, lads be only coming in at 1:00 at silage. Anyway, lads, mighty stuff. Great stuff. Look, I think it's one of these weekends. I think we all kind of came around to. Eventually, we hated the two. Or originally, we hated the 2 All-Ireland semi-finals on the one weekend because we felt we were giving away a weekend of hurling. But I think we're looking forward to a weekend like this magic now, like with 4 massive games, like, and winner takes an awful lot in these. Guaranteed a quarter-final or a semi-final spot if you can win this match at the weekend. So much to play for. We will so look forward to it, and we look forward to talking to you all again next Monday. So cheers, lads. We may not be able to get in on the hurling action like we're used to yet, but we can get in on some exclusive offers from Renault. To celebrate their 3rd year as official car partner of the GAA, Renault is offering a range of special offers exclusive to all GAA club members. Check out renault.ie/GAA to find out more.
With Renault, passion for what drives you. Official car partner of the GAA.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.